Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How are you doing tonight?
Good. That was a really rancid hockey game, and the Oilers almost managed to give it away, but they squeaked out a 2-1 victory over the injury-depleted, not very good to start Chicago Blackhawks, and now have an 8-game winning streak, Bruce. 8 games. Not bad. How are you doing?
I'm starting to calm down. I did not enjoy that game one little tiny bit. I hated the first period, I hated the second period, and I hated the third period.
So you're just a big ball of hate.
Pretty much. I'm going to severely test my never critique a win mandate.
All right.
Because if I don't, I'm not going to have anything left to say.
It was a shitty game.
Hide your eyes.
It really was. For a win, wow, that was terrible.
Take the 2 points. I hope they're already on the tarmac, getting out of Dodge.
But you know what, Bruce? 43 points now in 37 games, a .581 win points percentage. Nice. They're tied with. Let's wait a second here. Let me get the wild card standings up. I think they're tied. We're tied with Seattle, but Seattle's played a lot more games. Give me 1 second. Okay, Nashville has did they lose tonight? 45 points.
They did.
In 41 games, and they lost tonight to a weak Anaheim. I hadn't checked the scores recently. That's good news. So the Oilers are just 2 back of Nashville with 4 games in hand, and 3 games in hand. They're tied with Seattle. 2 points back is St. Louis, and the Oilers have 2 games in hand on St. Louis. And then there's also Arizona's in the running. When you look at goals differential, Bruce, the Oilers are the only one of those teams with a positive goal differential. They're plus 19 at this point. Everyone else is either even or minus. St. Louis.
Quality really shows 50. In that column.
It's a good indicator of team play goals for and against. Yeah, indeed, it's the only one that matters, other than the win column, which is the one that matters. All right, Bruce, this is our 2 good things, 2 bad things, 2 numbers podcast with 1 conundrum. And I actually think the conundrum might be the most interesting part of the podcast. I'm curious to get your opinion on the question that's upcoming. Let's start out, though, with your good thing.
I got to go right back to Stu Skinner. Wrote about him this morning, about how well he's been playing with, talked about him last podcast, 28 goals against in his last 14 full games. Now it's 29 and 15. And what's that, about a 193 goals against average. 25 more saves tonight, so he's bumped up his save percentage, probably approaching 900 on the full season.
I think he's over it now. Yeah, I think he's.
So he was he was getting close, and he was coming from a long way back, right? He was at 854 at one point, and he's been consistently solid for a while now. And I thought he was solid in this game, and he needed to be solid while some of the foundation was crumbling around him. He stood tall and had to battle to see a lot of pucks. Chicago was getting pucks and players to the net front, which is 2 things the Oilers weren't doing particularly well. And Skinner, he made some good saves through traffic. He made some good decisions to freeze the puck so they could get one underperforming line off the ice and replace it with another one. There were sessions of the game there where it was like 4 or 5 or 27 defensive zone face-offs in a row, and Chicago would just control. Puck would go to the point, guys would go to the net, puck would come in through traffic, and, chaos would ensue. And Skinner dealt with all of it. He made one horrible turnover where he miscommunicated with Leon and passed it right to the other team. That nearly cost him, but it didn't. And otherwise, dare I say that Edmonton goalied Chicago tonight? Like, I'm almost embarrassed to say it.
I don't know.
Chicago had
little
more
strong.
shots, more expected shots, more goals, what was our count on
They had more
grade
grade
A
A
shots?
shots. So it was 12-10 for grade A
Yeah.
shots, and the subset of 5 alarm shots was 6-5.
Okay, and the goals were
So
2-1 for Edmonton.
yeah,
So
you
our
could
goalie played better than their goalie.
you could say it if you were running to write a provocative headline. You could say that. More accurate is he outplayed the other team's goalie, is what I would say. He was the better goalie on the night, which is always big. And his save percentage now in the season, Bruce, is .901. So
excellent,
fantastic. Good for Stu
Skinner
Skinner to pull that out. And he made, in particular, early in the game, kind of a sprawling save on Ryan Donato.
the one that nearly made it 2-0 on the wraparound.
Exactly. Yeah. And he got his arm back there, and who are the culprits on that one? I can't remember. Was that
it was right after
McLeod
the goal, right before the 1-1. Yeah, McLeod got absolutely walked.
Yeah.
He just did the old Matador defense, tried to poke the puck off the guy's stick while getting out of his way.
Yeah.
And he did succeed in getting out of his way. And Buddy just walked right in and around the net and tried to pump it in. And there was the puck eventually did go in, and the referees, who did quite a bit of this tonight, ruled that it was no goal for Chicago that time. And
he made another great stop off Donato in the third period. And there wasn't much activity on net in the second for about 30 minutes, the second period and the first 10 minutes of the third. But then Chicago came alive, and they had a number of scoring chances right at the end. Rem Pitlick hit the goal post, which was a big moment for the Oilers that happened. But some pretty good goaltending for sure.
Yeah, it was the one aspect of Edmonton's game that held up, I thought. It was a good thing they played Stu tonight. Like originally, I was thinking this might be a Pickard game, but
I thought they might play Pickard too.
I'm thinking if they had, they might not have won that game.
Yeah, it's that game is the same 2 points they got for that incredible win over the New York Rangers just before Christmas, right? And the Devils just before Christmas.
2 points.
It's the same in the standings, so it's utterly critical for the Oilers. They've got to keep putting up points, and there is a chance. There's an outside chance they're going to catch Los Angeles in the standings.
They've lost 6 in a row, David, and the Oilers won 8 in a row. I guess there's a chance. They've got some loser points in there, but Edmonton's gaining on them every night.
Well, they're only 4 points back, Bruce, and the season isn't halfway over. They've played the same number of games. Oilers are 4 points back. So this is something that's achievable. The Golden Knights, the Oilers have 3 games in hand on the Golden Knights and are 8 points back. So even that, they have an outside shot of catching the Golden Knights. And the Canucks are way ahead. They've got 57 points. The Oilers have 43, but they are the Canucks, so you never know.
Well, and here's the goal differential.
I shouldn't say that because the Canucks are such a great. They have been playing great hockey this year under Rick Tocchet.
Here's the goal differentials, though. Real goals: plus 54 for Vancouver, plus 18 for Vegas, plus 33 for Los Angeles, plus 17 for Edmonton. So the other 3 teams are, well down, but Vancouver is, they're in first place because at this point they've been the best team.
I was interested in something, Bruce. I was thinking, I wrote a post about how critical it is that the Oilers back check, develop the habit of back checking consistently. And I was thinking of kind of one good measure of a coach is how many rush chances does his team give up? Because you don't have to have the most talented hockey team in the NHL to limit rush chances. So much of that is discipline, habit, positioning. Sure, some of it is skill, the defensive skill of the players. Like if you have, some great skating, shutdown demon, you're going to limit rush chances. But I thought in terms of actually, figuring out ways to rate coaches, specific things to pick out, So I asked Megan Cheka about this, and
Mhm.
Megan is her brother John was the GM of the Coyotes, and her husband and I think she's involved. They run a stats company uh, in based in Ontario. They've been running it for about, I think John started it. They've been running it for about 15 years. So anyway, she sent me the list of which teams give up the fewest rush chances per game played
Mhm.
in all. This is for all situations, not just even strength. So this is
Right.
all situations. And the team that gives up the fewest is the Vancouver Canucks,
Wow.
2.92 per game. So I think that says something about Rick Tocchet's coaching. I think that a team that is giving up so few rush chances, the team giving up the most is the Chicago Blackhawks, 5.05 per game. And the Edmonton Oilers were the sixth least, Bruce,
Wow.
according to their numbers, 3.47. I should have just asked for even strength rather than all situations, because the power play is a bit different situation. And
Mhm.
but the Oilers are the sixth least. So, we've made a lot of it this year, and I've complained mightily about it. I think you've mentioned it a few times. It's been mentioned a lot by Oilers fans, how many rush goals against the Oilers
Yeah,
were
we
giving
have.
up. But according to this, at least, in terms of the league, they're doing
Well,
a pretty good job. And
they've
and they
righted
have
the
been playing
ship.
great
They've
lately.
they've
Yeah.
leveled up their stats, and after I was writing about it this morning. After 18 games, they were 5-12-1, and they were pretty dreadful. And then the last 18 games, well, now 19 games, 16-3, and they've been playing better, obviously, but they're also getting, uh, more results. Like they're scoring on a bit more rushes themselves, or they're breaking up rushes, or they're getting saves, or like it seemed like every rush they gave up, the puck was going in the net
Yeah.
for those first games, especially.
Yeah.
And so that's regression is a thing, and it should happen, and it has happened. And there's still, as my stats point out this morning, they went from basically among the three worst teams in the league to almost the best team in the league out of two equal segments. So guess what? They're in the middle of the pack because that's how things average out.
Here's the top 10 teams in terms of limiting rush chances, giving up the fewest in order. And it's interesting because many of them are either in the Pacific Division or in the Western Conference. So Vancouver is the best, giving up the fewest, then Winnipeg Jets, Los Angeles Kings, then the Washington Capitals, then Minnesota Wild, Edmonton Oilers, Carolina Hurricanes, Seattle Kraken, Nashville Predators, and Vegas Golden Knights. So that's a lot of
Hmm.
teams that Edmonton's battling for right now, either in their division or for a playoff spot, give up very few rush chances. And again, I think it is an indicator of good coaching on that team. That would be my argument. Bruce, my good thing is Mattias Ekholm. And he is the Oilers. He and Bouchard are the Oilers' number one D-man pairing. Most successful. I don't know if they always play the most minutes, but they're dominant right now. Ekholm and Bouchard are playing better than any defense pairing we've seen since Chris Pronger teamed up with Jason Smith in the 2006 playoffs. They are just crushing it. And Ekholm, after an iffy start, it's just been getting better and better and better. Tonight, I thought he was the Oilers' best player this game. In the first period, Draisaitl made a great play coming around the net and putting out a backhand pass from behind the net. And Ekholm moved into the slot and drilled a really great
Yeah.
one-timer on net. Then his best play of the game was in the second period on McDavid's fantastic goal, where he ripped a great stretch pass to McDavid on the fly, hit him breaking in, and McDavid, as the greatest striker in the game did, he had great finish and deked out the goalie and scored the goal. Fantastic play. Between the second and third periods, he ripped the Oilers for not working hard enough and doing more, getting in. I think he was frustrated he didn't say this with the forwards a little bit, for not pressuring the Chicago players for kind of half-assing it around the ice and not putting enough pressure on them, and he let it rip. Then with a minute and a half left, he made an absolutely brilliant defensive stop at the side of the net to stop a goal when Chicago had the man advantage. So
very likely,
he had a great game, and he is a great player. And again, you know, when we were weighing all of the work of Ken Holland, there are some bad moves, and we know what they are. You know, one of them is in the AHL right now and causing some suffering. But Mattias Ekholm, that was a hell of a trade. That really was. It's given the Oilers, I think, a legitimate chance to win the Cup last year, and we'll give them that same thing this year. He puts them over the edge, like to get a top pairing defenseman. That's good work by the GM.
Yes, it is. And I was going to mention that between periods interview if you didn't, but I'm still going to mention it because I loved it. That's what they need in the room, is someone to call a spade, to use an ancient expression, and tell them that they need to be better. And I guess maybe he did tell them, because I can't imagine he went back into his room and didn't say anything after saying that to on-air TV audience. And he at least walked the walk and skated the skate and did just enough things. But anyway, good on him. I would have picked him, and if I'd have been picking stars tonight from the Oilers, it would have been Skinner and Ekholm.
So, Skinner and Ekholm? Who did get picked?
McDavid, Draisaitl, Dickinson were the 3 stars, the 3 goal scorers.
Oh, okay.
The 3 goals that counted scorers.
Well, they are in America.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Maybe Ekholm is. Did you ever watch Ted Lasso, Bruce? Maybe he's like Jan Maas, the Dutch player who always tells the truth in rather dramatic or
profane.
Not profane, but very blunt fashion. But
the Swedes are pretty good for that, I've found over the years. But anyway, he didn't mince any words there, and I took encouragement from that. At least they're noticing that they're not playing well, So I'm going to morph into my bad thing, which is in fact the defensive play of the forwards, which might sound funny in a 2-1 victory, but I didn't find Edmonton's play in their D zone or in the neutral zone, or really in any kind of transition play at all, to be very good. They, Chicago was just sailing out of their zone and through the neutral zone, and they weren't getting picked up. Like it always seemed to be, there was one more Chicago guy coming up the ice. Then there was no Oiler in position to take the guy who had the puck and was walking in with it. And in the third period in particular, they had just a dreadful time of making routine handles of the puck and getting it over the damn blue line. Holy moly, how many times did somebody fumble the puck and they couldn't clear the zone? And I mean, hanging on to a 1-goal lead, here's an idea: make a play. You got all this skill. Somebody make a pass, or carry the puck and don't fumble it 2 feet inside the blue line. And it was on and on. There's a few forwards, and I don't want to get in necessarily individual stuff. I just thought that the offensive or the defensive commitment was weak from the forwards. There was way too much flying of the zone going on, which might have been an idea if someone could make a pass, but those weren't happening.
Yeah.
So it was just a one of those games. I don't know if you burn the tape, as the old saying goes, or if the coach has a little session tomorrow. So,
Bruce, as we watch, we watch these games closely, right? And we both know the following to be true: that about 1 in 10 games for a team is a stinker. It's a stinker. And usually, if the Oilers had been playing against any other kind of better team, they would have lost this game. they would have finished their chances and they would have beat the Oilers. But because it was it was a good time, if you want to put the positive spin on it, maybe this was a good time to have your stinker game, get that out of your system.
2 points, yeah.
And get the 2 points. Or maybe you need to actually really suffer in the stinker game to get the proper motivation to write your game and play better.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows about that? That's a difficult thing to say. I just think you're going to have stinker games. This was one of them, and they got to win. So I was good with that. I'm not as upset about the play tonight. And although it does occur to me that, maybe their low level of energy and low effort on a lot of plays will bleed into the next couple games. I don't know. Where are they going? Montreal and Toronto?
Detroit and then Montreal.
Detroit and then Montreal. All right. Well, and then they have Toronto after that?
Yeah, they play Toronto here at some point.
Yeah. So Detroit.
Back in Edmonton, yeah.
Yeah, Detroit's not a natural... it's not a natural game where you're going to be through the roof to play the Detroit Red Wings right now. I mean, they haven't been good in a long, long time. So maybe we'll see it there. Maybe it's going to come back to haunt them. Maybe we'll see the same kind of thing, and they'll lose. The streak will end in Detroit. Who knows?
You play like that again, they're going.
They're going to lose. Yeah, they would lose.
Let off the hook tonight, and even at that, I mean, this game could have been a little bit more comfortable in the third, as you're going to talk about. But the fact was, it was a nail biter right down to can't put the puck in the empty net again, right down to the dying seconds.
Yeah. My bad thing, Bruce, is the 3 plays where Zach Hyman was involved and could have easily had 2 goals and been critical factor on another by screening the goalie. The first one was the goal that McDavid fired in from outside, where Hyman screened the goalie. And honestly, I don't get it. Like, Hyman was outside there was slight contact earlier, in about 2 seconds before the shot, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But Hyman moved out then. The goalie was able to set wherever he wanted to. He was on the edge of the crease. He's allowed to be there. He wasn't making contact with the goalie. And the puck went in. Where's the problem? I didn't see one. And I don't know. I don't like that. To me was a good goal. Then early in the third period, just a fantastic play by Darnell Nurse. He wins the puck on the boards. He lofts it through the air. It was a really tough battle that Nurse was involved in. And he won the battle, and he lofted it through the air. And Draisaitl picks it up and crosses the blue line with it. He picks it up kind of out of the air. He's bringing it under control as he's crossing the blue line, and puts it over to McDavid. And McDavid makes a brilliant pass to Hyman, who's charging the net, and Hyman slams it in. And the refs call it a good goal on the ice. And as Louis DeBrusque said, I think quite correctly, like, if you're going to overturn a call, you've got to be sure. And sure doesn't sound like 5 minutes looking over videotape. That looks like you're not sure. And you're I don't know what the heck you're doing, because there was a coach's challenge called, and the refs look at it again and again and again and again, and they finally decide that Draisaitl has gone offside. Bruce, I think it was too close to call, and
way too close to overrule.
Way too close to overrule, and that's another good goal. And the third one is he has the wide open net with the empty net, and a Chicago player makes a pretty heroic play to stop his shot, but he couldn't get that one either. He could have had anyway. It's a tough night for Zach Hyman, but I don't know. What can you say? These things. I liked Evan Bouchard's reaction after the game. He says, "You just never know how these things are going to turn out, and you got to. We know that, and we know you can't let it get you down, because you just got to get out there and play. This is the right attitude for players." Bruce, we are not players; we are fans.
Yeah,
so you're allowed to be upset and angry over such plays. It's perfectly reasonable response from fans, and I just think that sucked. That was for one goal, maybe but 2.
Yeah, the first one, I thought if they challenged it, that the refs would say, well, the ruling on the ice was that Hyman was in the blue paint long enough to prevent the goalie from doing his job. And we're going to uphold our own call and you're going to get a penalty.
Yeah.
And I think the Oilers thought, well, we got the lead, we don't want to give them a power play. But it could have gone their way, I guess. But the original call on the ice went against them, and it was a conservative call by the coach. But the rule is there that if you're in the blue paint and the goalie, can't get his space because there's an opponent there, then they have cause to cry foul. And Hyman did kind of clear out of there just before the shot came in. So anyway, the second one, that offside challenge, man, I hate that offside challenge with the heat of 1,000 suns. All it can do is take goals off the board. And this was the goal of the game. This was the goal Chicago fans paid to watch. And it was taken off the board on a highly dubious series of circumstances. I'll start with the fact that they showed 5 replays of the goal. And I'm saying, I hope the puck is dropped, because I could tell it was close at the blue line when they come back to it. And here the ref's still kind of waiting. Well, Mr. Richardson, do you want to have a review? We really think you should have a review here. Come on now. And so Richardson took like a minute and a half to claim the challenge while their own guys reviewed the tape probably 20 times. And it was so close. Like, if you're going to have a review it in real time and do the whole thing in a minute. And if you can't tell, well, go with the call that you had on the ice. Simultaneity is a thing. And this was one of those plays. I thought it was possible Leon's the very edge of his skate preceded the puck over the blue line by about 1 millimeter. But I also think the puck was on Leon's stick when it came over the blue line. He pulled it into himself to legalize the play. And they were so busy looking at where his skate was and where his toenail clippings were with relation to the blue line, they forgot to look where the frickin' puck was, which was on his stick. That's terrible. They overruled a goal because they had to say, we saw something that means that what we saw before was wrong. And I'm telling you, I didn't see any such thing. And I watched all 7,000 replays that they showed while they're internally waiting for these clowns to make their call.
Bruce, I hated that call. I hate the offside calls with the heat of UY Scotty. Do you know what that is? Testing your astronomical knowledge here. Scotty.
Oh, that's a variable star, Scooty. SCUTI, right?
There you go.
UY would be the numbering or lettering of variable stars.
The largest known star
of Scutum.
Really? The largest known star in the universe is UY Scuti. If UY Scuti were the center of our solar system, its photosphere or outer shell would reach just past the orbit of Jupiter. Oh. Wow, that is big.
Yeah.
And that's the heat that I have and hatred of that call. Okay, what is your number?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the number 4. And that was the number of hits tonight by Adam Ernie. And this is the second game in a row this has happened. It's kind of concerning. On Saturday night against Ottawa, Oilers had 14 hits in the entire game. And Adam Ernie, who played 6 minutes in that game, 6:45, he had 5 of them. And a few other guys had 1, and Warren Fogle had 2, and the rest had none. Well, tonight the Oilers had, wait for it, 9 hits in the game, 4 of them by Adam Ernie, who played 6 minutes and 25 seconds. And he literally had like half of the hits of the entire team, which had 5 men on the ice for 60 minutes, and 1 guy in 6 minutes has the sort of same number of hits as everybody else. Like, play like you want it, guys. Take it to the battle. Win a physical battle once in a while. Take somebody out. Knock them down. It's legal, mostly.
I see
4 hits for Ernie, 5 for everyone else.
And my number is 1, which was the number of hits for Evander Kane. And I see he's trending on Twitter here. People complaining about the stupid penalty that he took, which is fair comment. He will get penalties because he plays a rugged game. I haven't noticed that to be a particular Benoit Pouliot of a problem for Evander Kane. But listen, when he was healthy earlier this year, he was throwing 5, 6, 7, 8 hits a game, and a lot of them vicious hits. I think I read on Twitter that Bob Stauffer mentioned, I didn't hear this myself, so this is Twitter scuttlebutt, that Kane is, we know he's been injured. Apparently he's had some kind of lower body problem for the last month. And it really has been in the last month. His game started off super slow. It went up.
Yeah.
He was dragging the team almost single-handedly for a while there. He
was
had
the
a
best
great
player
month
for a
and a
couple
half.
weeks.
And then in the last month, he has struggled and he hasn't been as physical. I can imagine if he's really hurting and battling an injury, it would be really hard to go in there and first of all have the timing to make hits, and then also the desire to get involved physically when you're hurting. But he hasn't been, and it's having an impact. And I almost wonder, and I can't. We may have talked about this before. Like, just maybe they should sit him for right now.
Get better.
Let him get better. Like into the he's got this break coming up. The Oilers have this break coming up, the All-Star break, and just let him have 2 weeks off. And again, I doubt he wants that, but it might be really good for him, and it would be good for the Oilers if he was able to heal up. And maybe 2 weeks isn't going to be enough, but it probably wouldn't hurt at all. So yeah, Kane has not been himself, and they could use him. Maybe it's not. Maybe he is getting slowly better though, and so I don't know his injury situation. I can't say for sure, but he's kind of a shadow of what he was about a month and a half ago when he was a dominant player for a while again.
Yeah, he had a lot of games where he was having 3, 4, or 5 shots on net.
Yeah,
and 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. There's one game, 10 hits, 4 shots. Another hit, 7 and 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 4. Where he's like big numbers in both categories. Tonight, 1 hit, 0 shots, and just 1 shot attempt. And I can remember it. The puck came to him in the high slot, and he just turned and slammed one generally towards the net. It rocketed off the glass and it went out, and Chicago wound up with an odd man rush because the wild shot just went nowhere. And it was like there wasn't a whole lot of planning that went into that particular one. He just kind of whacked it and missed the net by a wide margin, and out it came. And the puck died on his stick a few times, and he says, he likely playing hurt because we've seen him so much better than this. And I think just maybe a little disengaged since he got put on the third line. And they had him and Brown back together tonight, which has not been a good combination at any point. And they had their struggles, and his, whatever it is, I heard it called a core body injury. When he missed the one game at Los Angeles, they were referring to a groin injury, which I guess is a core body thing, and whatever it is, he's far from 100%, and I wouldn't be upset in the slightest if they gave Sam Gagner a game in his spot and say, say get better.
2 games,
take some time and get better.
I guess it's quite a while till the break now, though. It's what, 3 or 4 games, 5 games still. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 8 games, isn't it? It's like 3 weeks of games here before the break.
Yeah, fair enough. It might be a little early, but okay, Bruce. Let's move on to our conundrum. And the question tonight is, would the Edmonton Oilers be better off if there was a free market for players? No hard salary cap. If it was like the NHL between about 1991 and 2005, 2004, when you were when players got to a certain age, I think it was 30, 28 or 30, something in there, or a certain service, was it 7 years? They were completely free to sign with whoever they wanted. And I just wonder if the Oilers at this point would be better off under that system. And I'm raising this because prominent NHL player agent Alan Walsh made a pitch for this after the Nylander contract was signed, and there was, of course, outcry from some people saying, he's overpaid. Immediately, half the fans he's overpaid, half the fans are okay with it. And what Alan Walsh said, quote, is back in 2004, Bob Goodenow, who was then head of the NHLPA, said a hard salary cap would dominate fan and media discussions, become detrimental to growing the game we love. He was right. Nowadays, the fan bases around the NHL are all wringing their hands over a player's average annual, what's the V stand for? Value, AAV. The debate becomes, he's a really good player, but is he worth $6 million AAV? We only have so much cap space to go around. This could have been avoided with a luxury tax. So, of course, Walsh is an agent, and he doesn't like the hard cap. You can't blame him for that. Why would he? I think star players would be making 2 or 3 times as much if there was no limit on what they could be paid. So, Bruce, at the time in 2004-05, I don't know how you felt, but I was in favor of the strike that led to the hard cap. The Oilers had the lockout. Yeah, excuse me. The lockout that led to the hard cap. It was the NHL owners who locked out the players and didn't let them back into the NHL unless they agreed to a hard cap. And that's what happened after we missed a whole season of hockey. At that time, the Oilers were one of the lowest revenue teams in the NHL. And I was I'm primarily an Oilers fan, so I look at all their league dealings with how it's going to affect the Oilers' ability to win or lose. So I wanted to see that hard cap, and the Oilers got it. Things have changed, though, and I'm just wondering what you think. Do you think it would be a good idea for the league and for the Oilers if there was more freedom in this area for signing players to bigger contracts?
Well, I guess if you could take a snapshot right now of, the relative financial strength. I mean, you also wrote in that post that Oilers were tied with Toronto as the top revenue generators in the league. So on that basis, they, in theory, they got the money to get into the market and sign players. I mean, my question is, would they have survived from then until now to get in such a strong position? And especially to what degree would you have to change up that market? Like, would McDavid and Draisaitl have signed here for 8 years if the setup had been different and there was no sort of upper limits and stuff? There were different incentives out there. So it's kind of hard to ask the question in a single moment when we've had 18 years of the new hard salary cap system. I didn't like the lockout, and I hated the fact that it cost us an entire season for them to resolve it. And in the end, they might as well have signed it at the beginning for all that anything really changed. But it was, 20 years later, and I still resent the fact that there was an entire season that didn't get played because these guys couldn't figure out how to divide up their millions. But it's part of the history. Edmonton was one of the teams that was strongest for this salary cap because they were tired of having a $38 million payroll playing against Detroit with an $83 million payroll, or Toronto or New York Rangers, $100 million or whatever the heck they got up to, and they were wanting to have this, sort of competitive balance. Well, we certainly got all of that, or we had it for quite a while. It's actually the competitive balance now. It's kind of changing. I think the league is really starting to stratify the competitive teams and uncompetitive teams, and there's a fair number of the latter where there didn't used to be that many of them. But I think. Edmonton's. It's still hard for me to believe that Edmonton was 30th and last in the NHL in revenues 20 years ago, and now they're first. Like last to first, just getting to the middle of the pack would have been a fantastic accomplishment.
It is amazing. It's amazing.
Blows me away.
It did me too, Bruce. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. This is from Forbes. And they're, you take their numbers with a grain of salt, but they have been doing this for 25 years.
Yes.
They've been looking at this and they have their sources, and I don't know how incorrect they are. But to see the Oilers go from, dead last to first, tied for first with Toronto Toronto Maple Leafs, the same amount of revenue as the Toronto hockey market. Now, the Oilers had playoffs, an extra round of playoffs this past year, which would have bumped up their revenues about, I don't know, 10 million or so. So, but nonetheless, what an achievement for the business office for Daryl Cates of the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, much of the credit comes down to two things: a new arena, which is regarded in the NHL as one of the best arenas in the NHL. And in terms of our downtown, I would argue is one of the few things, if only the only really great thing going for our downtown right now. And Cates has developed that area, made a lot of money doing that as well. And then Connor McDavid's arrival, of course, is the other huge factor. I mean, how much of the Oilers are estimated by Forbes to be worth $1.85 billion, Bruce. How many hundreds of millions of dollars has Connor McDavid added to the value of this team? A few years ago, I estimated he would add about 200 million. But I think I underestimated by about three. I think it's probably more like $500 million he's added to the Oilers. And if not more than that.
Which is a lot more than they're paying him.
That is. So that's why I say, like, what would Connor McDavid get in an open market?
Well, but the Oilers have ever got Connor McDavid in an open market.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Like, this is a highly speculative question. And we're like, it's like, what would have happened in the Second World War if Germany hadn't invaded Russia? It is a question along those lines.
Yes.
Right now, to get rid of the hard cap, the players would have to be willing to sit out a year. And Bruce, given the way the world is now, with our shorter attention spans, which I really do believe are shorter because of social media,
100%.
I think if the NHL shut down for a year, it would be utterly catastrophic for the league in a way that none of them can comprehend. How many people would move on from hockey in that time and change their habits? I mean, they really during COVID, it was tough enough to keep the fans, and they kept playing. They figured out a way to keep playing. But if they miss a whole year right now, good luck to them. And so it's kind of a moot point in that way. I don't think either side's prepared to do that. But so the interesting thing is, if let's say somehow it did happen, everyone thought it was in their best interest for some reason, which I don't think will happen with the Oilers. But if they did, it's fascinating the Oilers could actually compete in terms of revenue as it stands now. For now, as you say, like if they lost Connor McDavid, maybe they lose, suddenly their revenue drops 20, 30, 40, 50%. It's possible.
I remember going to games in the 90s, David, and there was like 8, 9, 11,000 people in the stands at NHL games. And we had, that's when Les Alexander and Michael Larg and all them fast-talking Americans came out and wanted to take our team away. He was one. Anyway,
he was a fraud. For people who wonder why we're laughing, Michael Larg was a fraud. Like he didn't.
Absolute.
It was rumored he was going to buy the Oilers and bring them to New York, and it was rumored. Like then we found out
he had some deep pockets friend who didn't exist, and he himself didn't have a pot to piss.
I think he lived in his mom's basement, like literally.
But he sure was a fast talker.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, but Les Alexander was a serious threat to take the team to Houston. Yeah. And I was saying to my wife this morning when we were talking about this news, and I said, I can't get my head around the fact there was 4 WHA teams that got in 1979, and 3 of them didn't survive. Like the franchises are still around, but none of the cities are. Quebec got moved out, Hartford got moved out, and Winnipeg got moved out to States, and then a new Winnipeg came back to take their place. Like they're the closest to being a WHA team. So, and Edmonton was like at death's door with these, they had a crappy team around 1995, and they had, an owner with very short pockets and
owners, you're talking about Pocklington,
yeah, in the Les Alexander phase of that, and it was. The Edmonton Investors Group basically saved the franchise, is what the legend has it, and I believe it to mostly be true. That they, this team was gone, and they had, 37 partners, breaking into their piggy banks to get enough to keep the team going, but it was a near thing. And for that team, for any WHA team to suddenly be on top of a big pile with the New Yorks and Montreals and Torontos, Bostons of the world, it just is frankly astonishing.
It really is. Although I do wonder under Pocklington in the Stanley Cup era where the Oilers ranked for revenue, because they had all those great Stanley Cup wins and they had a sold out arena. And
Yes.
I think the Oilers actually at that point were doing pretty well. But of course, Pocklington had such major financial troubles with all those other companies that the money was drained away into those businesses, not kept in the hockey team. And then, the hockey team started selling off players. And you had this terrible downwards cycle where people lost faith in the owner.
Yep.
Anyway, all ancient history now, Bruce. It's very live. It's alive in me and alive in you. We both remember this like it was yesterday. That's right. It's part of our being an Oilers fan, and it colors how we view this team, the struggles of this team, the financial situation of this team, the arena. All of these things are colored by our past experience as Oiler fans. And sometimes, I think there's a disconnect between fans who started cheering for the team, let's say, in the 2006 Stanley Cup run, who they see everything differently. And sometimes I think the negative moves hit them harder than they hit us, because I lived through the Gretzky trade, the Gretzky sale, and the Messier trade, and the Curry trade, and all of these great players leaving. So it doesn't seem such a big deal if, let's say, there's a slight overpay on Darnell Nurse, for instance. I can live with that.
But Alan Walsh has a point about that, and Darnell Nurse is a classic case in point of a guy that almost doesn't matter what he does. He's always getting judged by his contract and by what he costs against the cap. And he could be a $9.249 million player, and he would be judged against that $9.25 million cap that he has.
Yeah.
I'm from the age where, okay, once you've got your team and the team's on the ice, you root for your team, right? He's part of the team. I'm rooting for him too, whoever it is. With very rare exceptions of players that did something egregious enough to make me step back. But normally I root for, the guys on my team. And if they're overpaid or underpaid, well, it's a thing, and it's on the GM for sure. But taking it out on the individual players and stuff is, I don't think that's right.
I'm not big on it either. That said, Walsh's solutions, people were suggesting that in Major League Baseball and the NFL and the NBA, people are every bit as much on the players for their salaries, even with a luxury tax or the various systems that are in place in the other league. Everyone's kind of grinding on the players and their value against their contract in all of these leagues, and it's not that different. I'm not a big enough fan of any of those leagues to know if that's true or not. I think, though, from what I know of the Premier League in England, where players are brought in, it's a free system, and you pay whatever you want. Generally, like, there's some limits, but based on your revenue. But there's astronomical amounts paid for players to come in, and they get these huge salaries. There's less of that, I find, in the Premier League. It's just more like it used to be in the NHL, where really you just rated a player on their performance, and you might grouse down then about their contract, but not that much. Most people didn't do it that much. It wasn't this huge perspective on the game like it is now, where it actually really is important, the value that you get as compared to the player's contract. It's not a trivial issue. It's critical to a team winning. So I can see why everyone who's a fan of the game thinks about that a lot.
Oh, it's part of the calculation for sure.
Yeah.
But there are times where, the time to be doing that is in the summer when you're putting your team together.
Yes.
And, once the team is made, like, constantly bringing it up.
I know.
Is pointless.
I find it tedious as well, but everyone's going to be a fan in their own way. And I try to accept how other people want to be fans, and I'm not always successful, Bruce. I admit it, but that's my attempt. All right, let's let's leave this there. And we're next game is Thursday night,
At
correct?
Detroit.
At Detroit. Bruce, thanks for talking tonight.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.